Hey film friends, I'm Nick Furman. This is Furman on Film. Welcome to the channel. Here we are in a small dilapidated gym owned by Kristen Stewart in a nowhere town. And then a She-Hulk walked in to pump some iron. They saw each other and it was love at first sight. And then Kristen said, "Hey honey, how about some steroids?" And Katy O'Brian said, "Nah, all right." And then people started dying. It's a dark, seductive world where love ignites violence. And there's no Elton John song anywhere. This is Rose Glass, Love Lies Bleeding. All right, look, most people are calling this a neo-noir, and they're not wrong. So let's put our nerd glasses on and head to film school for a moment. Noirs began in the 40s and 50s, so think of movies with Humphrey Bogart like The Maltese Falcon and The Big Sleep. It was a post-war time when we just weren't sure how we felt about structures of authority. Noirs rushed in with hard-boiled protagonists, often private eyes, femme fatales, and intricate plots involving crime or deception. Visually, they used low-key lighting, shadowy cinematography to create this atmospheric ambiance. And tonally, they were dark and cynical, often amusingly so. The key is that the characters were morally ambiguous, which is a massive change from old Hollywood. Right and wrong just got fuzzy. So there's a resurgence of these with neo-noirs in the 70s, like Roman Polanski's Chinatown, and again in the 90s with LA Confidential. And a film which I think this one borrows heavily from, that's the Wachowskis' Bound. And now neo-noirs have been rolling through the 21st century. Mulholland Drive is my favorite of the bunch, but there are tons of others that we could mention. A lot has changed since the days of these early urban set movies, with handsome leading men who stumble into this seedy, dark underworld where they get in way over their heads. Now the genders of the leads has changed, the sexuality of the characters, even the locales. We're in small Midwestern towns as much as desolate cities. So now, here we are with Love Lies Bleeding, a movie about a gay gym owner who falls hard for a ripped female bodybuilder who's just sort of rolling through town on her way to Vegas in a competition. And we're off. This thing is stylish from the very first frame. A slow motion lifting sequence engulfed in this intense EDM score. And soon we're getting montages of music and sweat and lust. See, that's a feature of the new members of this class of films, sex and gore. You know, this film is physical and visceral in ways that we rarely see when people use those descriptors. We see human flesh a lot, how violence is actually staged throughout, the shots and editing of human bodies. Love Lies Bleeding leans into the physicality in ways that actually become as amusing as they are intense. And Katy O'Brian becomes almost a superhero in this one. We get steroids as like a Hulk smash creator. And this is quickly becoming director Rose Glass's unique stew for her movies. You see it in her debut, Saint Maud, as well. It's just exhilarating how far and how hard her pictures are willing to go. Always twisting and surprising us, it keeps the viewers on their toes constantly. And although it's a movie that's hyper physical, it's also really interior with its two leads. And this is a perfect role for Kristen Stewart. When we meet her, she is quite literally wading through crap with a plunger in hand. I mean, Stewart has this magical thing she does where she comes off as demure and uncertain of herself at all times. And it really works in this setting because she's our leading lady. But in some ways, she's so off-kilter that she actually tilts the film on its axis. And then we get this amazing scene with her on the phone when she changes and begins to take back the power. It lands so heavily because of her persona and how she carries herself as a performer. And Katy O'Brian is just a balance of being absolutely diesel here and really emotive. She was a bodybuilder in real life, and this becomes like a physical prop throughout the proceedings. But most of all, the chemistry between the two of them is just electric. And I've got to say, I love this older, wizened, wig-wearing, really demented Ed Harris performance as well. Well, I think this film is both similar and dissimilar from so many of its ilk in ways that we could critique. On the one hand, this is a story we've seen a ton of times. It's a pretty conventional noir film, but then it gets naughty in the third act. So on the positive side, we get some fresh things. But negatively, Katy O'Brian's character motivations become pretty inscrutable. I mean, in a lot of ways, she just kind of becomes a steroid monster. The bodybuilding competition, which is the animating force for the plot early on, becomes small and separate from the rest of the story once it opens up, which is fine, but that whole scene where she goes to Vegas kind of just gets short shrift in the storytelling. And yeah, I feel like I've got to say it, there are quick flashes of undeniable gratuity here, both in the physical intensity between the two women who are falling in love and in all of this bloodletting. This has now become pretty customary with rose glass films. But if you're not into it, you're not going to enjoy this one. Finally, to avoid spoilers, I'll just say that the ending takes some pretty big swings into the surreal. And I think that just begs the question whether or not you think those moments work. And more importantly, do you like where the film leaves us? Do you find the conclusion to be satisfactory? For my own part, I generally dug it without viewing this as a complete masterpiece. So, what do we conclude? Rose Glass is back, and her second feature pretty much ups the game in every way. In Love Lies Bleeding, love, lust, and violence collide to powerfully pulpy effect. Featuring an always game Kristen Stewart and a powerful specimen, both physically and in terms of her own acting chops in Katy O'Brian. Here's a picture for fans of lovers with an intense erotic connection and noirs with a seductive modern twist. Well, there you have it. The only thing left to discuss is our rating for this picture. FOF gives Love Lies Bleeding 4 out of 5 stars. If you enjoyed this review, please let us know by giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Also, don't forget to visit FurmanOnFilm.com for even more movie content. Thanks for watching. I'm Nick Furman. This is Furman on Film. Stay firm, my friends.